right now on Hoosier News Source, how the IU community is remembering Nathaniel Stratton.
And a controversial visit from Indiana's Attorney General.
And I have updates on Hurricane Ian and this week's weather. Hoosier News Source starts now.
Hello and welcome to Hoosier News Source. I'm Emma Herway.
And I'm Caroline Geib.
Police have now charged the man who evaded them through the city storm drain system last Tuesday. Eli Schwartzentruber is being charged with multiple crimes, including attempted battery with a deadly weapon, sexual battery, and battery resulting in bodily injury. Last Tuesday, he allegedly sexually assaulted and threatened a woman in her home before attacking several people near Seminary Park. He then evaded police through the city's storm drain system before captured after a 7-hour standoff. At the time, police said he might have been armed, but they did not find any firearms after the arrest.
Last Thursday, students held a vigil for Nathaniel Stratton, who was killed in a hit-and-run on 12th and Walnut a little over a week ago. Students, friends, and faculty gathered at Showalter Fountain to remember the life of Nathaniel Stratton. Stratton was a junior at IU in the Kelley School of Business. His family traveled from Minnesota for the vigil, and his dad and sisters spoke. Those who gathered held candles in honor of Nate and held hands in a moment of silence. Stratton's two best friends described him as a giver and a supportive friend.
Pulling your heart close, tell them you love them, because you're not going to be able to forever. This shouldn't have happened. And I love the man, and he's going to be with me for the rest of my life.
Stratton was also a type 1 diabetic. The family said they've raised over $30,000 for type 1 diabetes research since Nate passed.
Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita spoke at the IMU on Friday with the ISI Buckley Society at IU. His attendance at the university initiated controversy on campus. Before the event began, protesters gathered outside. The Attorney General covered pressing political topics such as recent Indiana abortion regulations, transgender student rights, healthcare, and more. Rokita participated in a Q&A moderated by an ISI club member as well as his own speaking portion. A main topic of his time on stage was spent discussing the importance of individual liberties. When asked about state individualism and how states can avoid federal overreach, Rokita shared his opinions on why states should not take federal money.
Because the Biden administration is trying to force transgenderism into schools by holding school lunch money hostage. We're not going to feed your poor kids. We're not going to feed any of your kids unless you bow down to this gender extremism. So we're certainly going to be suing over that, but it would go away immediately if the state of Indiana just said, you know what, we got our kids' lunches.
The event lasted about 90 minutes and was attended by both supporters and protesters.
IU graduate student workers voted this week not to go back on strike. The Grad Workers Coalition Coordinating Committee recommended voting no due to the improvements the university has implemented. These include a 45% wage increase for the lowest paid workers, the elimination of mandatory and international student fees, improved mental health care, and more. A majority voted no to striking, but yes on granting the coordinating committee authority to set a future strike date if ongoing negotiations with the university fall through.
The Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity on campus has joined the list of Greek life houses on cease and desist. The university placed the fraternity on disciplinary status on Monday. Endangering others and alcohol violations were listed as the reasons for the disciplinary action. Pi Kappa Alpha is currently on elevated disciplinary probation until June 30th for hazing, alcohol, and endangering others from a previous incident. They are under a social restriction until the end of January.
We are coming up on heated midterm elections, which are now just 6 weeks away.
HNS reporter Ashton Hackman joins us in studio with a look at some of the most competitive races. Ashton?
Yeah, hard to believe that we are already coming up on Election Day. We've been talking about the midterms for quite some time now. Let's start in the Senate, a very divided chamber that it is currently. 50 Republicans and technically 50 Democrats when you count 2 independents that caucus with the Democratic Party. They technically do have a majority, though, because Vice President Kamala Harris is that tie-breaking vote. So Republicans heading into the midterms only need to flip 1 in this chamber. On the House side, it is also equally divided, a very divided government. 212. We do have 2 vacancies currently, one with both party. Charlie Crist, a Democratic representative in Florida, resigned from his seat to focus on his Florida governor's race. And then, as you may recall, Jackie Walorski, the Indiana Republican congresswoman who died this late summer, her seat is also vacant. Both of those will be filled this coming election. So as we head into the midterms, Republicans only need to flip 6 in this chamber as well. Let's take a look at some of the Senate seats that are up for election. This is an interesting thing to talk about because heading into a midterm election, when the president's party typically does not do well in the midterm elections, Democrats kind of have a bit of breathing room. They're only dealing with 14 seats up for re-election, whereas Republicans are dealing with 21. So another reason for Democrats to be a little bit more hopeful as we head into the election. Lots of races to talk about. I've narrowed it down to just a few. I want to start in Georgia, a very hotly contested Senate race there. Raphael Warnock, the incumbent Democrat, he won that special election, you may recall, back in 2020. So he is now running for a full 6-year term. He's taken on Herschel Walker, a former pro football player who has the endorsement of former President Trump. The latest, this is honestly, in my opinion, one of the more closer Senate races. Poll averages have about 2.5-point lead for Warnock heading into this election. So that one will be crucial to see who takes control of the Senate. There's also a very important governor's race here in the state of Georgia, a rematch of that 2018 matchup. You may recall Stacey Abrams, the Democrat there, facing off against incumbent Brian Kemp, who survived that primary fight, taking down David Perdue. Really not a close primary at all. Another Senate race that you're going to want to keep your eye on is in Pennsylvania. I think this is honestly one that Democrats probably have the best chance at keeping. This is an open seat. The incumbent is not running for re-election. So Fetterman, if he holds on to this seat, it will be a hold. He's taking on the former TV doctor Mehmet Oz. This one, I believe, as of the latest polling, Fetterman is up 7 points in that one. So again, more than likely a better sign for Democrats as we head into Election Day. And then Arizona, there's also 2 close races there. First, a Senate race. Mark Kelly, the former astronaut, the incumbent who also won a special election back in 2020, is running for a full 6-year term as well. He's taking on Blake Masters. So this would need to be a Democratic hold if they want to maintain that seat. The latest poll that came out today, actually, up 8 points. Mark Kelly is in that Senate race. And then there's also a hotly contested governor's race in the state of Arizona. If we can pull that up there, Katie Hobbs, a congresswoman from the state of Arizona, taking on a former news anchor in the state of Arizona, Carrie Lake. This one much closer than the Senate race at this point. It goes back and forth based on generic ballot for Congress. Carrie Lake has a 1-point lead in that, but in terms of the overall governor's race, Katie Hobbs has a 1-point lead. So governor's race seems a little bit more close.
Any predictions as to how the night will go?
We've had a lot of talk about momentum here. I feel like Democrats are probably feeling better about their chances as we head into Election Day. If I had to say, Democrats have a pretty good shot at holding the Senate. In the House, though, it looks a little rough for them. It seems as if they're going to lose 25 seats, which is a lot less than what some predictions had, 60 a couple months ago. So it's definitely getting a little more close.
Thanks, Ashton. We look forward to hearing more updates on the election as we get closer to November. Now for the latest on this week's weather. Kayla Craig is here to tell us what to expect. Kayla?
Thanks, Caroline. Hurricane Ian made landfall in Cuba as a Category 3 hurricane Tuesday morning and now has its eyes on Florida. We can't be sure of exactly where the storm will hit, but it looks like Hurricane Ian is heading towards Tampa Bay of Florida. And we can see that the chance of tropical storm winds is occurring in these areas, with the most concentrated around Tampa. Evacuations have begun and will continue as the storm nears the Gulf Coast, likely making landfall late Wednesday to early Thursday. Stay safe and stay tuned for local protocols if you or your loved ones are in an affected area. Let's have a look at today's weather. Here in Bloomington, we're in for a beautiful fall day, and we'll reach our high of 65 at around 5 p.m. And all day, we'll have a gentle breeze and some sun peeking through and a few clouds. Let's see what to expect for the rest of the week. This week starts off on the chillier side, but will warm up as we head towards the end of the week into the weekend. Although it'll be pretty cool out, we're sure to get some sunshine through most of the week. Stay safe and have a great week. Caroline, back to you.
Thanks, Kayla. Coming up on Hoosier News Source, the Health Center has a new way for students to get Std tests right in their own homes.
And we'll tell you about a big addition to Assembly Hall's concession stands.
Welcome back. Olivia Oliver joins us in studio with the latest on international news. Olivia?
Thanks, Emma. Massive protests are erupting in Iran after a young woman died after being taken into custody. 22-year-old Mahsa Amini died after being apprehended and taken to a re-education center for not wearing her hijab correctly. Thousands have since taken to the streets, and the Iranian government has taken to limiting internet access to try and control the demonstrations. It's being estimated that over 1,200 people have been arrested so far, and while a death toll has not been officially released, many estimates put it around 30 to 35 people so far. And long lines of traffic are forming as people try to leave Russia for fear of a draft. Drone and satellite images show traffic stretching nearly 10 miles leading into Georgia. Many are fleeing after Putin issued an order for a partial military mobilization, meaning those in the reserves would be drafted to fight against Ukraine. The order has also sparked protests and even prompted one man to shoot a military draft officer on Monday in response to his friend being drafted without military experience. And far-right leader Giorgia Meloni is set to become Italy's first female prime minister. Meloni won the nation's general election and is expected to form the country's most far-right government since World War II. Her party, the Brothers of Italy Party, allied with two other right-wing parties to put up a unified candidate, while the left and center-left oppositions ran separately. Italy is the third largest economy in the EU, leaving many of its neighbors worried about the shift in leadership. That's what's going on around the world. Guys, back to you.
Thanks, Olivia. IUPD said 3 e-scooters and 3 bikes were stolen within the past week. The 3 e-scooters were stolen throughout last week from Cedar Hall, Wilkie, and the east side of Memorial Stadium. Then on Wednesday, a bike was stolen at Bayer Hall. 2 more bikes were taken on Sunday from bike racks at Foster Gresham and the Wright Education Building.
The Health Center is offering take-home Std tests under their new Easy Peasy testing program. The new project allows students to get a testing kit sent to them through the mail. Students will receive a urine collection kit along with instructions on how to complete it. Once they do the test, they can drop it back off at the Health Center and receive the results a few days later. Medical Director Beth Rupp said they wanted to give students more options to test however they're comfortable.
We know that there's a desire for students to be tested in different ways than the traditional coming in to see a provider and getting tested that way. So we want to try to meet the students where they're at, and we felt like this was a way that we could do it.
The kit currently only tests for 2 STDs, but the Health Center is hoping to expand and allow for more kinds of tests later on.
WFIU and the Jacobs School of Music have partnered to host outdoor jazz concerts this September. Swing in September takes place every Friday in Dumb Meadow at 6:30 p.m. Each concert presents a different jazz band showcasing various artists. The concert lasts approximately an hour and are free to the public. In the event of rain, concerts are moved to Recital Hall. Bring a blanket or lawn chair to Dumb Meadow to enjoy jazz classics with friends and family. IU Athletics made an exciting announcement for Hoosiers. Starting this season, Assembly Hall will sell beer during both men and women's basketball games. Beer sales will start on October 7th, kicking off the season with Hoosier Hysteria. Originally, fans couldn't purchase alcohol during the games since the crowd is so close to the court. Fans cannot buy beer in the last 10 minutes of the second half in men's games and at the end of the third quarter for women's games.
And staying on the subject of sports, Hank Joseph now joins us for the latest on IU Athletics. Hank?
Thanks, Emma and Caroline. The IU men's soccer team continued their undefeated record at home with a 1-1 tie versus Michigan State on Friday night to earn their first point in the Big Ten this season. After falling to the Buckeyes a week ago, the Hoosiers took an early lead thanks to an assist from Nick Sesok to Brett Beebe, who netted his first goal of the season. The Hoosiers had plenty of opportunities in this one and will certainly be disappointed in the result after a header from Michigan State found the net in the 72nd minute. They'll get a chance to rebound at home Tuesday night against the Northwestern Wildcats. The Hoosiers football team dropped their first game of the season to the Cincinnati Bearcats 45-24 on Saturday afternoon in a game the defense would like to quickly forget. IU went down early and would only muster one touchdown in the first half as they found themselves down 38-10 at the break. Two Cincinnati receivers, Tyler Scott and Trey Tucker, combined for 277 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns in a dominating performance. Big Ten play returns for Indiana next Saturday night when they face Nebraska in Lincoln at 7:30. Finally, the Indiana women's soccer team played 2 conference games last week versus Minnesota and Wisconsin, both resulting in scoreless losses. With 8 goals on the season and 5 coming in a win against Trine University, the offense has to get going for this team to find success in the weeks to come.
Thanks, Hank, and thank you for watching this week's episode of Hoosier News Source.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at IUSTV News.
I'm Emma Herway.
And I'm Caroline Gott. From Bloomington, Indiana, we'll see you next time.